Boker Tov, Erev Shabbat Shalom, Rechavia, Nachlaot in Yerushalayim. Thank you for joining us for this Kabbalah Café, Erev Shabbat, Parshat Lech Lecha, the day before Shabbat Lech Lecha. Today, because we changed the clocks over here in Israel this past Motzai Shabbat, so we're going to have this. We're going to have Mincha. Candlelighting will be at 4:15. So therefore, Mincha will be today at 4:30. Please join us. And also tomorrow morning, of course, everything is outside in an open area. And okay. And tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock is Chassidut, 9:30 is davening, and tomorrow evening, in other words, for Mincha, so we daven over here right near the Chabad house at 4:15. Tomorrow night after Shabbat at 7 o'clock, we're going to have a special celebration for Kiddush Levana, sanctifying the new moon. We're supposed to do it every month, but once a year we try to do a big celebration with lots of explanations. Hopefully it will be also online, and we look forward to seeing you either here in person with music and also lots of simcha and lots of joy, hopefully also online. The story is told about three kings a few hundred years ago. They're in this tall tower. You have the king of Britain, the king of France, and the Tsar of Russia. And they start having an argument between each other. Who is a greater king and whose soldiers are more committed to them? And so the king of France calls out, "Francois, jump out of the window." So the soldier starts to cry and falls to the feet of the king and says, Your Majesty, I have a wife and children. I want to remain alive. Please allow me to remain alive. And so the king of France realized that he lost the competition. The king of Great Britain says to his English officer, he says, "John, jump." So the soldier starts to beg, please, I'm prepared to jump, but just explain to me logically why I should do it. And so the Russian Tsar shouts at his soldier and says, "Ivan, idi suda, come here, jump from the window." So the soldier says to the Tsar, "Your Majesty, I have one question." So the Tsar's face gets burning from anger, red, turning colors, purple and green. And he screams, he shouts at him, "Shto ty chodzisz? What do you want?" And so the soldier answers, my dear Tsar, I'm happy to jump. Just tell me from which window." We have a concept in Yiddishkeit which is called avdut, to be an eved to Hashem. An eved follows along the command and the inspiration of our King, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Avraham Avinu is told a very, we would call it strange, commandment in the beginning of this sixth parasha. In fact, we almost don't know anything about Avraham Avinu's life for the first 75 years of his life. All of a sudden, Hashem appears himself to Avraham and says, "Lech Lecha, go." It's almost like saying, "Jump." Where should you go? Go from your land, from your father's home, and from all of your regular. When a person gets into life, especially the older one gets, you become more and more complacent in your life, in your lifestyle. Hashem says, go from wherever you are, and where should you go? El haaretz asher areka, to the land that I will show you. For heaven's sakes, why doesn't Hashem tell Avraham Avinu, go to Eretz Yisrael? Wouldn't that be more simple? Wouldn't that take away Avraham's tension, curiosity? Where does Hashem want me to go to? wouldn't it be more honorable and respectful to Eretz Yisrael? Eretz Yisrael is not just another dot on the map. Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Yisrael. The land of Israel, the holy land of Eretz Yisrael, is holy. The land itself is holy. It's not just a technical place. You have America, you have Italy, you have France, different places. It so happens to be that the French people live in France. Actually, today, I don't think that's true. I think that the majority of people are Arabs already. Many millions of Arabs are there already and infested with them. But let's assume that France has French people. So, technically speaking, they live in this piece of land, and it happens to be called France. Therefore, those that live there are called French people. But there isn't really any intrinsic connection and relationship between the people and the land. But Eretz Yisrael, let's just finish with France. If you're going to do a cut and paste, and we're going to make an expulsion of all the people in France, and we're going to move them to England, guess what? They'll be called English, because now they're in England. But there's no special, maybe because of the language, they'll still be called French, but there's definitely nothing, no deep bond between the people and the piece of land. Unlike some people that wanted to put Am Yisrael leaving Europe into Uganda, Eretz Yisrael is intrinsically connected to Am Yisrael. And so that's why for all of the centuries and millennia, Am Yisrael at every moment, especially at the peak, Yom Kippur, the Seder night, we say, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. The next year, may we be in Yerushalayim, because Yerushalayim is the neshama of every Jew. So why didn't Hashem just say, go from your land, that's okay, to the land of Israel? El ha'aretz asher, these interesting, not clear words. It would have been much better if Hashem said exactly where to go. So it turns out that Hashem was telling Avraham Avinu not just where to go in his day, but the Torah is eternal. Even the stories that happen to individual people throughout the Torah, the reason why the Torah tells us these stories is not because it's a story or a tale book. Rather, it's a book of lessons. Torah from the word of Hora'ah. It's a lesson for you and I in every single generation, and even in 2020. The message is that Avram, Hashem is telling, at the time he was called Avram, not Avraham. At that time he was called Avram. Hashem said, Avram, go from your land, go from your comfort zone. That's point number one. Where to go? It's almost irrelevant. But remember that you have to go on my mission, Hashem says. You have to be a Shliach. You have to be a messenger, an emissary from Hashem. The fact itself that you know that you have to go out of your comfort zone, that is already a great step in becoming my Shliach, Hashem says. When we talk about dedicating ourselves to Hashem, a major component is to go out of our own lifestyle. It's okay to do good things, but what's demanded of us is not necessarily to be uncomfortable or to be in a bad situation, God forbid. Rather, to switch our mind power, to switch our state of mind. When our state of mind tells us that we have to be in a certain way, we have to eat because a certain thing, because that's what we decided, that's because our mother and grandmother told us, that's wonderful. But if the king says, now you got to change, now you got to move along, now you have to do this, A, B, and C, then that is the mitzvah. Lech lecha me'artzecha u'mimoladetecha u'mibeit avicha. And it might be difficult, but that's what you, Avraham, that's your mission. And you, Avraham, and Yitzchak, and Yaakov are the forefathers of Am Yisrael. You paved the way for all of us, for all of Am Yisrael, on how to act. That's why Hashem says, I'm entrusting you with this special mission of Lech Lecha me'artzecha. You should remember that this is the way of life. There's an interesting story. I don't know if it's true, but it definitely could be true. That there was once a tzaddik that turned to his congregation, to his chassidim, and it was Rosh Chodesh. I love Rosh Chodesh. And he said, today, when you say Hallel, and you say, Ana Hashem, please Hashem, I want you to say it with all your might. And so, like a classical shul, where you have two teams, and you have two waves. So when it came to Ana Hashem Hoshiana, half of the shul screamed, Ana Hashem Hoshiana, please Hashem, help us. And right after that we say, Ana Hashem Hatzlichana. So the other half of the shul decided that the Rebbe really meant that one. So they screamed with all their might. The other ones also said it, but these Chassidim screamed it. Ana Hashem Hatzlichana. After the davening, the Rebbe called over the Chassidim and he said, sorry, you got it all wrong. Both of you got it wrong. Besides for Ana Hashem Hoshiana and Ana Hashem Hatzlichana, which is really chapter 118 in the Tehillim, there's another Ana Hashem in the Hallel, which is quoted from Tehillim in chapter 116. And that's Ana Hashem ki ani avdecha. Please Hashem, for I am your servant. Giving yourselves over to Hashem for this month and hopefully beyond, on this Rosh Chodesh, to be dedicated to Hashem. Ana Hashem ki ani avdecha. Please Hashem, allow me to be your servant. What a great zechut. Ana is not only Aleph Nun Aleph. Ana can also be spelled Aleph Nun Hey. And that connects to the Lech Lecha. Ana with a Hey means to where? In other words, where do you want me to go to? I'm all ready. I'm a soldier. Excuse me. I'm ready at your command. I'm standing. I'm all ready. So that's a very, very deep level. That's a level of someone that's totally heart and soul, head and body, given over to Hashem, ready to be Hashem's servant. And it's not just one type of dedication that someone can have for Hashem. Rather, this is the yesod, this is the foundation. And that's why the first relationship from Avram to Hashem, Hashem tells him, Lech Lecha, go on, move on, don't worry, I'll let you know, I'll tell you. In a sense, it's a great level of trust and being dependent on Hashem. You're leaving your comfort zone in Ur Kasdim in Iraq. By the way, I once met a Jew from Ur Kasdim. It's a great story. Let me just finish the sentence. And now Hashem, and now Hashem, the first thing Hashem says, Lech Lecha, go, just be ready, buckle up, pack up your stuff, and be ready to be my servant, ready to be my Shliach. You know, the Chabad Bacharim, young Torah scholars, before they get married in the Chabad yeshivas, usually in more advanced age, like 20, 21, 22, during the summer months, we go out to remote places where there's no Shliach, usually because there's a very, very small Jewish community or undeveloped. And hopefully with time, there's a Shliach that comes if there's a necessity for there to be a Shliach there. So I had the great zechut in 2001 to be a Shliach in Mississauga, Ontario, right near Toronto. But unfortunately, it's the city which anyone that's running away from quote-unquote Jewish Toronto runs away to Mississauga. So these are people that are quite distant. We were there for three weeks during the summer, and that was an amazing experience. So one person that we met, he was from Ur, from Iraq. this is, till today, it's unbelievable. I was fascinated by it. Till today, it's called Ur. This is the end of last week's Parsha, where Avraham Avinu was born in Ur Kasdim, at the time Bavel in Iraq. And so the fact that Hashem gives us this powerful message and instruction to Avraham Avinu, he's really talking to us. And he's really talking to every generation for the past and the future. That we're talking about Avraham Avinu, the first Jew. He is the one who teaches us and sets the path on how we're supposed to be acting. And here's the interesting part. All of the above is alluded to in his name, as the famous teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, that if you want to know something, if you want to know about something, just look into the name and you'll figure it out. In the beginning of this parsha, Avram's name is Avram, without the hey. And at the end of the parsha, his name is Avraham, a hey before the mem safid at the end of the word, at the end of the name. What's the difference between Avram and Avraham? Does it make such a big difference? Come on, between you and I. And so the simple translation, as you see towards the end of the parsha, is that the reason why Avraham received the letter Hey in his name Avraham is because Avraham is kind of made up of three words. Av Hamon Goyim, the father of all nations. So it's almost a play on words. Hashem says, Ki Av Hamon Goyim Netaticha, and that's wonderful. But according to the Kabbalah, this is Kabbalah Café. I told you, the cafe is on you. So what does the Kabbalah say about the name Avram? I think it's fascinating. Avram is made up of 4 Hebrew letters. Aleph, Vet, Resh, Mem. Mem Sofit, the closed mem. So you can take these 4 letters and divide them into 2 words. Av, Ram. What is Av? This you probably know. It's like Abba. Av is father. Ram means exalted, elevated. Avraham Avinu was a very special neshama. His neshama, even the way it came down here, was elevated. It was totally spiritual. And even as being 3 years old, had the insight and the courage to go ahead and break all of the idols in his father's shop. That was something which was totally irregular and very, very meaningful. And so he was someone special. However, there was a little tiny something that was missing. And what was missing was that he was the Ram. He was exalted. He was uplifted, but a little bit too much. Not that he was, God forbid, an egotist, but he was Ram. He was lifted above the regular people. And the mission was that it's wonderful to be holy, and it's great to be exalted and secluded from people and to serve Hashem and to learn Torah and to be a holy neshama, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, we have to be together with people. We have to be bonded. And the Hey represents both one of the letters of Hashem's name and also, as we said earlier, Av Hamon Goyim Netaticha, to be connected to the people, a father to the nations, and the first Jew of Am Yisrael. That's the Hey. That's a special letter. Chanoch will like this one. The Hey. He gave us a great lecture this week, earlier this week about the Hey. And the Hey represents the relationship between the highest levels, the Keter, and the lowest level of Malchut. It connects everything together. And that's what Avraham Avinu is. And that's why he was able to actually talk to the people and connect to people and give people food and there's a joke about Noach. With all due respect, Noach, before I tell you the joke, I'll tell you a really nice anecdote. In the beginning of last week's Parsha, Rashi explains that there are two opinions of how to look at Noach. When the Torah says that Noach was a tzaddik, either we can say that he was a tzaddik, a real tzaddik, that even if he was in the generation of Avraham, he would have still shown, he would have still been unique and special. On the other opinion is that he wasn't a Rasha, but in his generation he was special. But if he would have been in Avraham Avinu's generation, then he would not have. He would have not have been so special. He would not stick out as being someone extraordinary. But just be a regular person, a good person. So someone told me last week a great line. He said that. So someone explained to me about Noach. So Rashi says, "Yesh me rabotenu." There are some of our sages that say that he was a real tzaddik. And then he says, "V'yesh shedorshim oto l'gnai." The other opinion, there are those that view him in a not such a positive light. He wasn't a Rasha, God forbid, but he was a tzaddik only for his generation. So if you look at the details of Rashi, it doesn't say for the second opinion, "Yesh me rabotenu." There are some of our rabbis. The rabbis learn him to be a real tzaddik. Who would learn? Who would understand Noach not to be such a big tzaddik? Other people. But it doesn't say me rabotenu. It doesn't say yesh me rabotenu. That's a very interesting anecdote. So the joke is that Noach was called a tzaddik. This is Yiddish. A tzaddik in Peltz. Peltz is a city in Poland somewhere. Don't worry, not Meltz. Peltz with a P. And so Yesh, Noach was a tzaddik. What does it mean a tzaddik in some town in Poland? It means that he had a nice fur coat. It was very cold and snowy outside. And so Noach, he put on a jacket for himself. In other words, he took care of himself. He built a teva. He built an ark for his family. Shalom alay nafshi. He took care of himself. Hakol b'seder. But Avraham was a Shliach. Avraham reached out to people. He didn't suffice by standing by the ark for 120 years, banging away, building this. It was wonderful. He listened to Hashem, but he was concerned for himself. Avraham Avinu was not only concerned for himself, he realized that he is Avraham. Avraham is one who is concerned for others as well. Not just Avram as Hashem created him, an exalted person, a father, albeit, but much higher than everybody else. Ram, up and away. No, Avraham, Hashem said, you are going to be a hay. You are going to put a hay in your name. And you are going to teach all of Am Yisrael what it means to care for everyone else. What it means to be a model Shliach, to teach all the Shluchim, to teach all the Am Yisrael, and also to be a father unto the nations, that this is how we're supposed to approach the surroundings and our lives for many happy years to come. Thank you so much for joining us. Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow evening, Kiddush Levana hopefully will be also on Facebook Live and Zoom at 7:00 p.m. Israel time. And of course, outside of Israel, it's still going to be Shabbos. So you'll have to see the recording of it on Facebook after Shabbos. And just to give you a little teaser, Tuesday evening, we're having a big lecture on marriage and respect of the husband to the wife and the wife to the husband, Bezrat Hashem, with a special guest lecture on Tuesday night, Bezrat Hashem, for our regular monthly lecture at 7:30. All the best. Have a Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for joining us. Be well.